here. So we have here talking about let's leave 2020 behind us. With us here today, as we're gonna introduce, happens to have 30 years of creating behavioral learning simulations and distributed immersive reality experiences for global clients. So, ladies and gentlemen, with us here today happens to be the founder and chief experience designer all the way. Now we're gonna head to Canada with Mr. Don Jones. Sir, the mic is yours.
Thanks so much. Thanks very much, and wonderful to take part in the panel this morning. And I'm going to start this session with where I ended that panel discussion this morning with a brief story. But first, let's introduce you to the agenda. The title today is Let's Make 2020 History. A new leadership development story starts January 1st, 2021. It's been a heck of a year. And we'd all like to put it behind us in many, many ways. Emotionally, it's been challenging. Technically, it's been challenging for all of us. And obviously for many, many people, it's been challenging in a much more tragic way. So let's look at what's ahead and what's possible out of 2021, because we're pretty excited. So this quote is, as a global community, we're in the midst of a revolution, merging the best of education, storytelling, data, and delivery. This is our work, our passion, and our purpose. So I wrote that about 3.5 years ago when we started on a journey that you're going to see, we're going to explore a little bit of at the end of this presentation. The presentation that we just went through was talking about measurement, starting with the end in mind. It also talked about the power of learning and keeping people engaged in that learning, because that's where it all starts, whether it's going to make an impact back in the workplace or not. It starts with, are they learning? Are they engaged? And then do we have a mechanism for moving that forward? So our story today, our agenda today begins with a story. Then we're going to take a look at where our perspective comes from, the work that we do in behavioral laboratories and immersive worlds, and what came out of that with a question we asked. We're going to look at leaving 2020 behind. What is, from our perspective, one of the positive futures of learning and development? And we're quite excited about the future and what the present provides for us. We're going to take a look at, it's not if and it's not when anymore, it's now. And the future of learning is right now. And we have a great opportunity and a great challenge ahead of us. And we're going to take a look at that. We're going to take a look at a white paper I wrote a while ago called The Last Mile, and what that represents in terms of virtual learning, what it did represent in the past, and what it has to represent in the future. And then we'll provide a sneak peek of something they've asked me to present here, which is a January launch of our Infinity platform. That for us is a way of manifesting all those things that we believe about the future of learning. And would love to hear from you about what you believe about the future of learning. So let's just start with a story. This is a story I ended with on the panel this morning. But it's a story about a lady who walks up 3 flights of stairs with a bag of groceries. She gets up in front of her apartment and she puts the groceries down, puts her key in the door, and is about to open the door. As she looks down the hallway, she notices that there's someone on all fours at the end of the hallway, and they're crawling around looking for something, and it's her neighbor. And she yells down the hallway, "What are you looking for? Can I help?" And he said, "I'm looking for my key to the door. I dropped it." And she said, "Well, where did you drop it?" He said, "Oh, I dropped it way back where you're standing." And she said, "Well, why are you looking at the end of the hallway?" He said, "Because the light's much better down here." And so he's looking for his key in where the light is rather than where he dropped it. And I'm starting this presentation today with that story because I think we're tending to look for a solution for where we're at, where the light is, rather than where we dropped it and where the solution is. Right now, the light is all on technology. We're a technology company, we develop deep technology, but the answer is not in technology. The answer is in our humans, human connection and in humans. And we need to focus on that. And so this whole talk today is going to be around how our future goes. Yes, we're going to talk about digital. We're going to talk about AI. We're going to look at all those things, incredibly important to our future, but not as important as humans. And we can't lose that storyline. It has to be first in our conversation. So where does our perspective come from as a method of introducing ourselves, but also so you can get a little sense of what we do? We work and build behavioral laboratories. Immersive Worlds, our company is called Experiential. We've been around. I started the company about 32 years ago. Actually, in October, it was 32 years. We're on 4 continents, physically in the classroom. Obviously, not as much during COVID. 22 countries in the classroom, 78 countries digitally, which we started about 7 years ago. We work in multiple languages and are at over 90 universities with some of our immersive simulated worlds. And we do in-class behavioral worlds. And it's important to understand the kinds of worlds we build. They're for leadership, development, sales training, safety training, all kinds of things, but they focus on behaviors, putting people in sophisticated behavioral worlds. And we're going to talk about the difference of those things. Digital, our track record in digital started around 2012. We're in 78 countries right now digitally, and at over 90 universities. And we're going to talk about Infinity, which we're launching in January, which is about 3 years of design and development. It wasn't built for COVID. Obviously, we didn't know COVID was coming, but it was built for a world that we believe was fundamentally changing around education and training and digital and how people access their learning. So we're going to talk about that. In terms of leaving 2020 behind, a positive future of learning, we really started with one question. What could we learn from observing 200,000 leaders, managers, and salespeople from every part of the world going through our simulated immersive worlds? These are actually living behavioral laboratories where people live inside those worlds for 3 hours or sometimes for 5 days, 24 hours a day, which we built for the Chinese aviation industry. And people would live inside those behavioral worlds, and we almost played cultural anthropologists and facilitators to that world. So we got to observe the world and these bright people from all over the world and how they interacted. And our focus was all on behaviors. So we thought, what could we learn by observing these and then noting our behaviors? And what we found out after 32 years is we learned a lot from these bright people. They all had incredible energy and enthusiasm for what they were doing. They got totally immersed in our simulated worlds, actively engaged. And from their behaviors, there was some things that evolved, and they were patterns. And we weren't looking for patterns from leaders in terms of them telling us what they do. That's not really our focus, even though I think narratively listening to people about what they say they do is really valuable. And there's such bright people out there. We can learn a lot from them, obviously, but we weren't as interested in what they said. We wanted to see what they actually did. And there's a difference. And it's not because people intentionally misrepresent what they do. They don't. But it's hard for them to really put perspective on what they do rather than intellectualizing what they think they did. So what we wanted to do was say, what actually is happening in these immersive, sophisticated worlds? Because these worlds are sophisticated. They're fun, they're energetic, we do all of that, but they're actually quite stressful and they're challenging. They're immersive and they're completely surround. So in a classroom, you're surrounded by that world, whether for 3 hours or 5 days. And we build and prop that world so that you believe you're completely in it. It gets quite stressful and challenging, and people can enjoy it as well. But I'm emphasizing the world behavioral because soon after starting the company 32 years ago, we moved away from developing just strategic simulations where you're learning about technique and the choices in your business from a technical standpoint, which are fine simulations, but that our focus isn't on that. It's about behaviors. And it's very difficult to get at actual leadership behaviors and help people to see their own behaviors in immersive worlds. So that's what our focus has been for about the last 30 years of the 32 years we've been in business, is looking at how can we learn from and help people see their own behaviors. So we're going to focus on that. And those behaviors come from patterns of what actually is happening for these people. And so a snapshot of our thinking, what came out of that discussion, what came out of our team's look at all of those things. Well, snapshot is that, and to go against all of the media, all of the hype, and we are a technology company. So, and I studied with some of the best AI people in the world at MIT at a course I took a couple of years ago. AI is not the future. Humans are. And that's really important to understand. Technology is going to be incredibly important, already is, of course, but it's not the future. The future of our organizations, the future of learning and development, the future of our planet is in the hands of humans and in those people that you work with every day and in you. The massive potential of our future is actually in you, not in AI. AI is important, but we will never optimize what we're doing until we get this straight. Humans are our future. You know, I heard this saying the other day about an incredibly bright woman from St. Mary's University. I can't remember her name just yet, but I did buy her book. But engineering is not evolution, and it's so true. My daughter's an engineer. I have such respect for engineering and what they do. But computer engineering doesn't touch and doesn't come close to what human evolution has given us, not even close. Human evolution is mind-boggling, more sophisticated than any AI that has ever been developed. And AI is important, it's going to be useful, but it's not even close to what human evolution has provided in your brain and mine and your kids' brains. So picture this. I'd love to start a documentary series, opening up the documentary series by going to Las Vegas and being at the Las Vegas Technology Show. Now, if you know anything about that show, you probably do. It's a massive show. It's where people pay homage to all the technological revolution in the world. I haven't gone, but I'd love to go. I would enjoy that, walking around, seeing all the new tech, seeing all the huge investment, billions and billions of dollars being invested in that technology. It'd be very interesting. I'm sure I'd see some things that just make my jaw drop, all of that. And I'd like to start the documentary with that awe-inspiring big show. But then where I'd go is I'd like to go to an inner city classroom, say in Toronto, where my office is, and go to one of the inner city classroom of kids where there's not massive hype, there's not massive investment, there's not reporters writing about little Joey and Mary and Isabel and Fatima and all these kids, no one writing about them. They're just sitting in their class being kids. But the truth is, we're missing the point. We're looking for where the light is. The light is all shining on the Las Vegas Technology Show. Great, I would enjoy that. But the truth is the solution is sitting in those chairs. It's sitting in those chairs. The future of our environment is in the brilliance of those minds, which a million years of evolution have kind of brought to the fore. Doesn't mean they're perfect. None of us are. But it does mean that the potential is much greater in that. We have to focus on that if we want to take advantage of the stage we're at right now. You know, if you go to the World Economic Forum, if you go to the World Economic Forum, also another place I haven't been, love to go, but I do read all of the stuff that comes out of there. And they describe what we're in as the fourth or the fifth wave of the Industrial Revolution. I'm really sorry that that's the way they label that, because I think it affects a lot of people around the world that are in business and respect that organization as I do. But I'm sorry they use that label, because we're not. The Industrial Revolution is dead and died 2 or 3 waves ago, absolutely. Now, the legacy systems of the Industrial Revolution are still here. Some of them are fine, and a lot of them are getting in the way. But we're no longer in the 4th or 5th wave of Industrial Revolution. That's just a lazy way of describing it. We've broken from that. What we are in, we're in the first wave of the human revolution. And unless we really recognize that the potential isn't in the machines of our time, the potential is how we leverage a human resource really and optimize that resource for the first time on this planet. Doesn't mean humans haven't made a contribution. Of course they have, amazingly, done all kinds of great things. But it's time to unleash the rest of their potential, which the Industrial Revolution really wasn't built for. We just don't realize it yet. And to the extent we don't realize it is to the extent that we're missing the opportunity of our time. And our time is about human digital partnerships. That doesn't contradict what I just said. We do want to take advantage of the technology of our time. It's brilliant. We're a digital company. However, it has to be humans first. And all of the research points to this. That's not just a feel-good story that I'm presenting. It's research. And 67% of digital transformations are failing, according to McKinsey. So imagine where we're at right now. COVID has pushed us all to become more digital. Every company in the world has to go, okay, how do we transform to become more digitally effective? How do we leverage the technology of the day? But McKinsey, who's actually one of the people that implement all these, simply says that 67%, and that can go up to 72 depending on what studies you look at, of digital transformations are failing. But they're not failing because the digital technology is letting them down. They're failing because they're not getting the people involved in the right way around those transformations. And that's McKinsey's own research, who does the implementation of these things. We're missing the point when we think it's about transforming digitally, and then people will fill into that. They won't. It's about thinking about humans first. I know I just finished watching a Netflix series called The Queens Gambit. It's become very popular. I happened to be a chess player as a kid, would stay up all night reading chess books. I loved it. Don't play it as much anymore, but it's a cute, and really, I loved the series, loved it. And then I found out that Gary Kasparov was actually the one who was the advisor on the chess moves, because a lot of times in movies they get the chess moves wrong. And so people who really understand chess go, boy, they didn't have that right. But in this one, it was very sophisticated chess moves, even though they didn't play it up. And Gary Kasparov was the one who instructed on that. Well, Gary Kasparov is a brilliant guy, was a grandmaster, and he was the first chess champion to get beat by a digital computer, Big Blue, IBM's Big Blue. That was humiliating for the world chess champion at the time, really affected him.
Mr. Dunn, I'm sorry to cut you off. I'm very sorry. Just want to make sure, is there a presentation along with the session here? By any chance?
Yeah, you're not getting it?
I don't think you shared it.
Oh, it's on, you're kidding.
It's all good. It's all good, because we were so into the talk, and I'm like, I'm sure there's some slides going on here, but
Thank you for interrupting. Of course, there's slides going on with this, and I'm happy that anybody could hang out that far. So thank you so much for that. Let me just get it up on the screen.
All right, great. And that Netflix show, we need to watch it. Actually, I haven't watched it yet.
It's a great Netflix show. But what he said, and Gary Kasparov understood, was that the best chess on the planet isn't being played by digital. It's being played now by teams of humans with a computer. And the future of work, it's an analogy for the future of the work. The best output for your organization is great teams partnered with digital computers. And in that order, you've got to get the great teams working together well, and then they have to leverage digital. But if you think you're going digital and you just put in digital infrastructure, it's nowhere close to being able to compete with great teams of human that's then leverage digital. But it has to be in that order. So we're not in the fourth or fifth wave of the Industrial Revolution. We really are in the first wave of the human revolution, where we have to focus on humans first. So if not now, when? So just to make the case, it is not about debating whether we're going there. We're going there. Traditional in-class training, as we know, is no longer available. 93% of global companies expect to permanently change remote working. They won't want to take responsibility for sending people back on the road for training. We also know that work hasn't changed. We need adaptive learning. We need employees that continue to learn, and employees want to learn. It's part of the bonus for their where they want to work. So we have to keep learning. We have to find a way to do that. COVID-19, of course, has been a dramatic accelerate to push us to further digital learning. That market's going to grow to 64 billion, $1 trillion in education globally. So it's really not about, is this going to happen? And when is this going to? It's happening now. Companies are investing in it. They're not backing off from it, and they won't be going back. So what is it then that we've got to learn from? Because all of these institutions, from corporate education to higher education, they all are required to change. It's all changing. So how do they do it? And what's the best way to do it? Well, I want to talk about the last mile. And the last mile is a white paper I wrote a while ago, but I want you to picture this. Picture that we're sending a parcel from Canada to Tokyo, and we spend $100 to FedEx it over to Tokyo. Well, most of that money for FedEx is actually, the costs are in the last mile. Most of the cost isn't in the infrastructure of delivering it, through the pipelines, all of that, through air and all that kind of stuff. It's actually once they hit the ground and they have to deliver it to the individual unique houses and leave a sticker, and someone has to be there to answer their call. Most of the cost in the last mile of transportation, of transporting anything, is in the last mile. And in digital education, we really got it wrong. We thought that all the infrastructure was the hard part. It's not. The infrastructure will be ubiquitous. We can get the infrastructure, we can get stuff out there. But the majority of the cost is going to be in the last mile, building high quality digital education that can scale. So the last mile in education and in learning now is going to be defined by the quality of the individual learning experience at the end. That means you in your home you are different than Mary, than Bob, than Fatima. So we've got to find a way for the individual to get great learning at scale. That's what the last mile is all about. And there already is a great analogy for this. The business model of our industry is changing, and people don't realize it yet. But think about going to the movies. I'm an author. I write fiction. I love movies. I go to the movies all the time. I just love it. And what does it cost me? It costs me $15, or for an MVP movie, maybe $20. But we go to those movies, but we expect the Hollywood or Bollywood to put in $200 million into the production of that movie for our 2 hours of entertainment. That's the level. And we just go, it was okay. It was an okay movie. They just spent $200 million on it. How can they do that? They can do it because they got distribution. And distribution where they can get enough. Right now, our business model has changed so that we need to build a high quality learning experience through the new distribution channels of your computer, your mobile phone, your Google glasses. Those are distribution theaters, distribution centers for high quality learning. So we can put more energy into building amazing experiences for the learner. So talking about that, they've asked me to present a little bit what we've been working on for 3 years. We didn't do this with COVID in mind. We just believed that the business model was changing, where you had to put more energy into building high quality learning with impact, as other people, Jack was saying. And so we started with the end in mind, but I'm going to show you a little bit about what this is about and then take any questions. It's been a 3-year journey. We've put a huge amount of energy in. Along the way, we won a Fast Company World Changing Idea Awards and Technology Innovation, so we're pretty proud of it. A great little team of people have put this together and worked very hard on it across those 3 years. This is Infinity. We want to give you a sense of this. And it's something you've never seen before in terms of all of the elements that go into making this happen and what it's about. So Infinity is much more than an immersive behavioral simulation, although it is that, and a very deep one. but it's actually 5 different things. It's first, we believe in blended. Someday we'll go back to the classroom, but right now we would encourage, and these are optional, 4 digital blended workshops that go along with Infinity. There's 3 immersive Infinity episodes, very story-driven, very immersive. We believe these should be gifts, and people should consume these like Netflix, like they love it and they want to go through it. Feedback, you get 3 digital mentor sessions. We built that from scratch. It's not quite AI, but it's very deep algorithms, and there is a difference, but not much of a difference. So 3 digital mentor feedback sessions. There's 60 days of transfer back onto your mobile device of coaching and support to help people change their behaviors back in the workplace, not just their thinking. And then there's organizational analytics, so it can be transparently viewed what's happening in the workplace, what changes are being made, how's this affecting people. So let's take a look at the overview of this. There's 3 episodes. Episode 1, episode 2, episode 3, won't get into them, but they're very sophisticated and they're immersive and fun, and they fit into your life. You don't have to fit Infinity into our schedule. You can play them anytime. 2.5 hours per episode, 45-minute digital experience. But in between those, you get 20 days of coaching, where the most data-rich part of the digital mentor transfers onto your mobile device, understands, has found patterns of your behavior, and then supports behavior change back in the workplace with daily nudges. As Jack was saying, it's small nudges every day that make the biggest difference to change. Research knows that, we know that, so we designed for that. It also has the 4 custom workshops, optional, but where we believe in connection between people as well. And then we have the organizational analytics, which allow you to transparently, from day 1, week 1 of this program, which lasts across 90 days, and it's about 17 hours in total, but allows the organization to see what changes are being made, because we don't just support nudge with the Infinity coaching application. We actually collect every information from you every day, and those are no more than 2 to 3 to 5 minute check-ins, depending on how you want to use them. And we've tested this with organizations. These are some of the pillars and competencies and behaviors. Won't go into them much because they're all customizable to the client, but that's the starting point. So when you're inside this experience, we want it to feel like a gift. So it's our job to make it so entertaining that you don't get distracted. You actually want to pull yourself into this. We want you to look at Netflix and look at Infinity and go, I want to finish Infinity. This is exciting. My team's getting out of control. And we want learning to feel like that much of a gift. So we put that kind of energy into it, because now the distribution models have changed, and we can get back our return on investment when we overinvest in the design of the entire program, which we've done. It was 20 plus team for over 3 years of development, about 3.5 years. We've fully focused on character development, story arcs. Behavior and simulation is very hard to get at. That's why it's important to develop incredibly rich character development stories. We did a 14-month partnership where we did testing with Mercedes and GE, 2 of our global clients. So we're launching in January with this to be scalable and sustainable, self-directed and or facilitated, real-time customer feedback on your behavior. We love the classroom, always have, but one of the problems with classrooms, you don't get individual feedback. Here you're getting feedback on everything you've done behaviorally, and patterns are being detected, and you're getting the feedback on those patterns. And the organization is getting the analytics from that. So with that, I'll turn it back over to see if there's some questions from you about this. And yeah, so why don't we go back to questions?
Mr. Don, no, that was pretty exciting.
Thank you. We honestly, our little team is so excited to be launching this in the new year. Yes. Thank you for that. It's been a huge amount of work, and we're pleased to be here.
It's so exciting to see that, Now, hopefully I won't be understood in the wrong way, but me being a gamer for the last 30 years, I saw this, I'm like, this is like gamification, you know, taking a certain model and put it in such a sophisticated and complicated matter that actually brings this amazing simulation. It's just a brilliant way of putting things together, and it's the way forward. So, you know, big shout out to you and the team. It's amazing.
Thanks a lot. And, you know, we love gamification too. We love games. But what we really are focused on is this, the entire system, because what it creates is a safe practice field for people to practice their behavior without worrying about getting it wrong. But then to get immediate feedback on your unique behaviors, and then to get supported in changing that back in the workplace. And then for your team, organization to be able to look anonymously at aggregated data. So you're not being evaluated. Don Jones isn't being evaluated, but the whole cohort, you've seen how the whole cohort has done. So it's the entire program that really has taken the time, and we've built that up absolutely from scratch. Every piece of code from the bottom up has been built by our team. So COVID has just accelerated the need for this, but we didn't build it for COVID. We built it for the future of digital learning.
This is so exciting. Let me see if there are any kind of questions happening here. I guess they're starting from the bottom. Now it goes like, people analytics is taking over like crazy, almost scary. Your reflections, please.
Can you just repeat that? I just missed one section of it.
So it says, people analytics is taking over like crazy, almost scary. Your reflection on this matter.
Yeah, it is almost scary. Boy, I think that's a great reflection. I think, you know, I started this by saying we are a technology company, we are a learning company. But if we get overwhelmed by the technology, we're really missing the point. It's about, we worked so hard on that because what we wanted is every individual to have an individual experience. You are different than I am, it's different than your neighbor. When someone says, oh, let's design some learning for Hungary. Well, we're not developing learning for a culture, we're developing learning for 400 leaders that are unique people in Hungary, you know, or 400 unique leaders in Bahrain. They're all individuals. They're not cogs. And so that is the hard part in this learning design, is to say, they're humans. How do we design for their individual human experience and put so much energy into that? Now we wouldn't get a client to put the kind of money we put into this. They wouldn't do it. But because distribution has changed, we think we can get a return on our investment and do higher quality learning that goes out at scale to individuals, and they get an individual experience of it. And they get individual benefit, individual coaching that helps them change their behavior. So that's why we work so hard at this. So that was a great question.
That was Bessie Matthew. Now going to another question by Max Vaughn. It goes like, how does this evaluation work? Could you give an example? Because it is exciting.
Yeah, so like I said, the hardest part of simulation design, and we've been doing it for 32 years, is behaviors. There's a ton of simulations out there that are good simulations that I like. They're good simulations, but they don't at all get at your individual behaviors. They get at some technical decisions you made, which is fine. You're learning strategy, that kind of stuff. But to actually build behaviors into a simulation is very difficult. And so every keystroke you make, you're managing a team, a very dysfunctional team for Laura Taylor, the great-great-granddaughter of Frederick Taylor, by the way, but she has a different view of the future of business than her grandfather. You're managing her most important team, and you're having conversations with them. You're talking to them. You're encouraging them. You're discovering their talent, or you're not discovering their talent. You're assigning them to different projects based on how well you know them individually. You're dealing with all these emergencies. So every keystroke you make is being evaluated maybe on 4 or 5 different behavioral metrics. And those algorithms, it's not about making a right or wrong decisions. It's about a pattern over 3 episodes, each episode one at a time, where the algorithms look at, here's some patterns that are emerging against 24 behaviors, 8 competencies, and 4 pillars of learning, all customizable to the client. And so you're getting these patterns, and we don't consider ourselves smart enough to say, hey, you should change your behavior. No, we've been doing it for 32 years. We have doctorates of education on our team, all of that. But the learner is smarter than us about what they need to do. So we put in some considers and continue. Consider doing these things. You might not realize, continue doing these things. You might not realize you're better at it than most people going through this game. Don't take it for granted. It might be your strength. We love to get that kind of feedback. But then there's some things to consider changing. But just consider it. If you're seeing it a pattern too, here's what the algorithms are picking up as a pattern for you. Right. Say around listening. You tend not to listen to personal things when someone's trying to give you a little bit more personal information. And you might consider experimenting in the next episode with listening more, or even back on your team when you're using the Infinity Coaching app, listening a little bit longer.
Great. So you just mentioned the algorithm. So are you saying that there is an AI implemented in the software itself, the application, and it actually picks up and learns as it goes?
Yeah, it doesn't learn as it goes. And, you know, I took a course at MIT with the guy who says he's the second best person in the world at this. How's that for humble? I'm only the second best person in the world. You know?
Pretty humble.
Yeah, exactly. Hey, and you're doing a great job of hosting, and I'd love to see Bahrain, by the way. That's beautiful, beautiful. Thank you.
Pleasure. Just come
and,
here.
Yeah, that was lovely, lovely. I wish I was there. And, you know, but I took a course in AI with a very, very smart professor at MIT because I wanted to understand what the difference between deep algorithms is and AI. And there's not that much difference, but ours are very, very deep algorithms. They're not quite AI. It doesn't loop enough to be AI, but that's where it's going. Probably the next version of what we do will just slip over that edge. But the algorithms are quite deep, and then they track all of your behaviors. They crunch the numbers, and then they give you a sense of some patterns that they detect against the learning outcomes that the organization wants us to give you feedback on.
Thank you very much, sir. I guess we're going to have one more question, and that's it. Now, Christina says, Infinity sounds really great, especially for younger generations. However, would you think it would be equally appealing to all age groups of employees across the company?
Yeah, it is a great question. And, you know, I'd ask that question about any medium of learning, whether it's lecture or anything, like who's really going to be involved with this. But we've tested this with GE and Mercedes globally, with clients that have everywhere from beginning leaders and managers to more senior leaders and managers. They're all looking to be pulled into an immersive world. Absolutely. So we've been doing simulation for 32 years. Most of our clients' audience are middle to senior managers. So we're used to pulling people into an environment that allows them to learn from their own behavior. So we're testing it at all those levels successfully. So we've been through that. Yeah, it appeals to a lot of people. They're tired of, first of all, poor learning. They're tired of things that aren't well designed, and they're tired of lecture. And so, yeah, there's a huge appetite for what we've designed and what we've tested.
Great. Well, Mr. Dunn, thank you so much. Apparently, the simulation can actually be a game changer to a lot of people and to a lot of leaders in the future. So we do appreciate the amazing effort that's been put in the simulation, and we can't wait to get our hands on it.
Well, the important thing to remember about it too, and you're a gamer, but it's actually a platform. So the platform allows us to build other kinds of games on it too now, where clients might say, let's do this. And we can say, well, you don't have to go through 3 years of development. Now we've got a platform, we can do it. So the future to a certain extent is right now, and we can leverage it.
Thank you very much, Mr. Dunn, to you and your team, and can't wait to actually try the simulation. Thank you very much.
Thank you for hosting. You're doing a great job.
Much appreciated, sir. Thank you so much.